El director británico ASIF Kapadia es uno de los documentalistas más importantes del último tiempo. En su haber tiene la película de Diego Maradona, el documental sobre los últimos días de Federer, el film Senna sobre el célebre piloto brasileño y el seguimiento de la vida de Amy Winehouse, que le valió la estatuilla a Mejor Documental en los premios Oscar. Además, filmó las películas de ficción Ali y Nino, El Guerrero, Lejano Norte y los films de terror Criatura y El Retorno, esta última con Sarah Milan Gellar. Tras su docuficción 2073, inspirado en la Yeté, nos visita ASIF Kapadia para conversar sobre cine junto a Sebastián De Caro en un nuevo California Secreta.
Bienvenidos una vez más a California Secreta, este programa de cine que hacemos aquí en Vorterix todos los jueves. Hoy un programa muy especial con un formato distinto. Tenemos un invitado internacional que voy a estar presentando en segundos nada más, que está aquí con nosotros. Pero quiero comenzar agradeciendo a Vinos de Barricas con sucursales en todo el país. Además hacen degustaciones literarias y catas a ciegas a las que pueden asistir. Yo estuve haciendo algunas lecturas en algún momento. Puedes entrar en su Instagram de Barricas, @debarricas, y en la web www.debarricas.com.ar. Estamos tomando hoy un Tierra del Fuego 2023 Reserva Cabernet Franc, que es este que tengo aquí. Y queremos agradecer a FICUBA, el Festival Internacional de Cine de la Uva, que se lleva a cabo desde el miércoles 1 hasta el miércoles 8. Kapadia recibirá el doctorado honoris causa y hará un seminario este viernes 3 de octubre. En el festival se proyectan 2073, Senna, Diego Maradona, Creature, Indian Tales, The Ship, Thief, The Odyssey, Amy, Federer, los últimos 12 días. Esto sucede el viernes y sábado 4. Así estará presente presentando Amy y Maradona en Cinearte. Actividades increíbles y dando una masterclass, tengo entendido, también. Comenzamos entonces así este programa de California Secreta. ASIF, realmente un honor, un orgullo, una alegría tenerte aquí con nosotros en Argentina y en este programa.
Thank you. Really nice to be here back in Argentina. It's been many years. Thank you for having me on your show.
Lo primero que quiero empezar a charlar, que la mayoría de los invitados que vienen lo cuentan, es cómo comienza tu vínculo con el cine, el primer recuerdo que tengas, y después el momento en que decidís que querés que eso sea parte de tu vida como un trabajo.
So I'm a big sport fan.
Mm-hmm.
I love cinema, but I was very young. My whole family, we watch everything. You know, football, Formula One. In our country, we have cricket, cycling, everything. I watched everything. I did the Olympics, you know. So I love.
Do you practice any sport?
I play football.
Ah.
I love football.
What is your position in the field?
I play five-a-side now.
Ah.
So I play. I mean, Tuesday. No, I'm in Argentina. Normally on Tuesday I go nowhere. I play football. Yeah, I'm a bit upset. I'm missing it tomorrow. But yeah, we play it everywhere. It's just fun still playing. But for me, the enjoyment of sport came from being very young with my family, my father, my sisters, watching everything. So I can remember being a student and watching Senna and Prost, the rivalry. I remember Nigel Mansell, Nelson Piquet, that whole period. And because a lot of the final races happened in Japan, it was in the middle of the night in England, and I was watching the races live, or it would be on the radio. And with the final race in 1994 in Imola, I was watching it on television in my parents' house with my father. I remember that final race of Senna very, very clearly. I had no idea years later that all of my love of sport would become my career. I had no plan. But it's like, in a way, when I make these films, I'm revisiting my childhood. And I'm trying to understand all of these things that I've seen and trying to turn them into drama. My background is in making fiction films. And so the way I made Senna and Amy and Diego Maradona, I tried to make them feel like they're feature films. And these characters are like movie stars.
¿Y hay algún título, alguna película de la infancia en ese momento que veía deportes por televisión que fue seminal, que fue lo que lo marcó, digamos, que siempre recuerda?
A film when I was young? It's really interesting because I can remember being very young, and at Christmas in the UK, they used to show Alfred Hitchcock's films. And so I was very young and I was watching television and I watched this sequence of something I didn't understand what I was watching. And it was like 20 minutes of a man just following this woman in a car with music, no dialogue, no talking. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. Something very peculiar is happening. And I realized later on that was a sequence from Vertigo. It was the opening of Vertigo. And I remember very clearly watching it on my own and thinking, I am seeing something here that I don't understand.
At what age?
Maybe in my low teens, I would have been maybe 14, 15. My family was not really into cinema. So that was the first one I can very clearly remember learning later on that was Vertigo. And it was just, no one was talking. And it was just music and the images. And I realized that's cinema. It affects you without anyone telling you what's going on.
Y con el documental que se convirtió en un terreno donde innovó, donde es un maestro, ¿hubo alguno en particular que apareció y que le llamó la atención? Y como esta imagen de Vértigo fue, bueno, no sé, el encuentro con algún autor especial.
Yeah, there is a film. My hero, when my father had a few heroes, okay, and one of them was Muhammad Ali. And so I was too young to remember Muhammad Ali when he was a great boxer. I remember him at the end of his career when he was losing fights. But Muhammad Ali was like a hero of mine. And I read a lot of his books and a lot of his biographies and what he stood for and what he did, where he lost the kind of best period of his career because he refused to go to Vietnam. He refused to fight on the other side of the world against someone he didn't know. So he was not allowed to box. So for me, the film When We Were Kings is the documentary that I saw at the cinema. And there was something about having like the music and the images. And he's so beautiful. He's so amazing. And I remember thinking, that's a movie. Okay. But also, no actor will ever be better than Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali is the best Muhammad Ali. So that film played a really big part on me making Senna, Amy, Maradona. Rather than trying to take someone's life and turn it into fiction, let me tell the story of the real people, the real voice, the real character, the imperfections that come with real people, for me is always more powerful than somebody pretending or using visual effects to be like someone.
Clarísimo. Yo le quería preguntar justamente de estos personajes, Amy, Diego Maradona, Senna, Federer, son películas distintas, de momentos distintos de la vida, a veces un periodo, en el caso de Maradona, a veces la vida, una vida lamentablemente corta como Amy, a veces otra vida como la de Senna, o los últimos 12 días de carrera de despedida de Federer. ¿Qué es lo primero que lo aproxima al personaje a él? ¿Es una frase, una imagen, un momento que lo conmueve, algo de la vida? ¿Cómo entra el personaje?
It's really a good question because for me, I come in with a very open idea. And really, it comes from research. I spend a lot of time normally studying the characters and doing the research to try to understand them. Maybe I'm a bit lazy. I don't read books. I just look at the images and I study them. So with each film, it was a different journey. With Senna, I'd never made a documentary before Senna. It's my first documentary. So I studied him for a long time because we didn't have the money to go and film. So all I could do was look at YouTube videos for a long time, 9 months, just looking at YouTube. But by doing that, I realized that was my history lesson on Ayrton Senna. To study his face, when is he happy? When is he angry? When is he lying? What does he say in Portuguese compared to what does he say in English when he does a press interview? So really, that was a long journey of understanding the kind of psychology of the characters. And once you understand the psychology of the characters, then I have to try to work out the shape of the movie. And with each film, I draw the film. I have a whiteboard at home and I draw the film. So with Senna, it was like a classical story, 3 acts. The beginning, which is his rise from being very young to being a Formula One pilot and winning the first world championship. The middle is the rivalry of Alain Prost. And then the final act, we slow down time and we just do the final weekend. So it's a different kind of shape. With Amy, it was like the rise and the fall. The before fame and after fame.
Much more classic.
Much more classic. With Maradona, it was very difficult because his story is much longer, much more complicated. So then I had to pick what is the biggest story. And for me, the biggest story was Napoli. When he becomes the greatest player in the world. He wins the World Cup with Argentina, but also all of his problems begin. You know, so he wins the Scudetto twice. He wins the World Cup. He's the best player in the world, but internally, all of his problems become very serious. So I decided to not try to tell the whole story because I wanted it to be one movie.
Wise decision.
Yeah. And the story never ends. It's still going. You know, even when he's not alive, the story continues with Diego.
And then you have a little part at the end of the movie, like the contemporary moment of Diego. You came to Argentina in the research?
I came quite a few times to interview people. I met Signorini, Daniel Cucci. I spoke to lots of people, but also to find the footage. I spoke to Claudia, his ex-wife, because she had lots of tapes. So she, for the first time, she let us into her home. We had old-fashioned pneumatic tapes, the old format. And we had to bring the machine from London to Buenos Aires to play the tapes. So we came here to interview people, but also in order to find the footage that is in the film.
Those images were never seen by the Argentina audience. Diego playing tennis or dancing.
Yeah.
We did not see.
So my job is always, if I do a film, even if 100 films have been made about Diego Maradona, my job is to make the definitive one. So I have to find the footage that nobody has seen. So partly my job is to be a journalist, partly it's a filmmaker, partly I'm an investigator. You have to try to dig into the places that even people who live here have never been. And I think it's often very good to be an outsider. I don't live here. I don't speak the language. So it's kind of, I can ask difficult questions, or sometimes I don't understand the complexities of being in the country. So then as an outsider, I always feel like I can come up with a point of view, hopefully that is honest.
A new point of view.
I hope so.
Bien.
Yeah.
Yo le quería preguntar del proceso de realización, que contaba, el research, ¿no? Primero del material, después acercarse, la investigación, visitar lugares. Y yo asumo que el montaje, que es el momento que el documentalista realmente está dirigiendo y tomando decisiones de superponer frases de un momento con una imagen, digo, digamos, en la misión de lograr este drama del que habla, ¿cuál es el que más disfruta o cuál es el más crítico? ¿O digamos, le gusta estar finalmente con todo el material o todo esto que va contando está a la par de la pasión también?
It's really interesting because, like I said, my background was in fiction films.
Yes.
And I found fiction films very restrictive. You write the script, you raise the money, you find the actors, you shoot the film, you edit the film, it gets released. What I love about documentaries is my brain is much more muddled. I think about the ending before I know the beginning. So when I'm making a documentary, I will start editing to begin with. I'll just rip footage off of YouTube and start editing. Then I will go and interview somebody. And then somebody will say something and I'll go, well, what are they talking about? Let's go and find the footage. And then we'd go and find the tapes. And then we edit those tapes and then I interview somebody else. So I do the editing, the writing, the research all at the same time and the interviews over many years. So that way my idea is not fixed. It's very organic because I may meet somebody and they tell me something really important, which I didn't know at the beginning. So if I had written a script at the beginning, it'd be wrong. So I have to be flexible. I like to be very flexible and go with the story. And you have to learn to trust your instincts. So I love editing, but also I really like talking to people. And a lot of my job, I realize, is like I love radio. I love hearing people and interviewing them and then trying to understand the psychology of each character. And through the interviews, I'm trying to unravel a person sometimes I never met. I never met Ayrton Senna. I never met Amy Winehouse. So I'm learning from all of these different people about this person. And then I have to find a way to show it. My job is then to find the images to visually tell the story so it becomes cinema.
Justamente le iba a preguntar eso que él insinuó ahí un poco, yo también como casi comportándome como él, tomando un pedacito y abriéndolo. ¿Qué diferencia hay cuando el objeto, el subject del documental, él lo conoce, tiene la posibilidad de charlar y en aquellos que no? En el caso de Amy, en el caso de Ayrton Senna, ¿qué implica para él de diferente? Si hay una diferencia, si es que en el caso de Ferrer fue distinta la experiencia.
It's really, I mean, for me, generally, I may have an instinct on these people, but generally I don't make a film about people I'm a big fan of. So I learn. I'm the audience. I'm the first audience. What I normally think is if I make a good film about Maradona or Senna or Amy, the people I want to see the film are the people who are not fans. The fans will watch it anyway. If it's good or not, they're going to watch it. Yeah. But I want to bring the people. I want to change the people who say, I don't like football. I have no interest in Diego Maradona. And then they see the film and they go, I had no idea. It made me cry. Same, I don't like Formula One. It's the most boring sport in the world. They just go round and round in circles. They watch the film, they fall in love with Senna because of the character. He happens to be a Formula One pilot, but it's the character which is more interesting. Same with Amy. In England, a lot of people really did not like Amy Winehouse before the film. They thought she was stupid, she was a drug addict, she was an alcoholic, what an idiot. And I like that they don't like her. For me, that gives me something to fight with.
Your quest.
I like to fight them. And I'm like, you don't know her. You think you know her, but you only know the tabloid representation of her. Let me show you the real person. Once you see the real person, there's no way you can not fall in love with her. And so that is the kind of tension that I like to work with. I like characters generally. Making stories about good people who are really nice can be a bit boring. Making stories about people that that have a bit of tension, that have a bit of drama is what you need to tell stories. You need conflict and drama. Something needs to happen. So that's what I like to work with. Yeah.
Y quería preguntar también por el contexto de las películas, por el contexto social, político, por los comentarios sobre la industria de la música con Amy, sobre el mundo del negocio del fútbol y los futbolistas en el caso de Diego, sobre Ayrton Senna y digamos y qué fue para Brasil, cómo a él le importa o trata también esos temas.
Yeah, it's a really great question because for me, I'm interested in the context. I'm interested in like the landscape or the location or where do these characters sit within the world? What is happening outside of their story? And what is the tension? Often the tension is not their rival. It is like the media, the press, the paparazzi, or the music business who's just, they don't, a dead artist makes a lot of money. They don't care so much, They call it the 27 Club. They're not in a club. She's dead, right? But they try to make it something cool. It's not cool when you're dead at 27. It's really not cool. Same with like the kind of the way the business of football or any sport becomes monetized. A lot of Senna and Diego were dealing with this tension where big money started coming in, right? And the players sometimes can become the problem. So I'm interested in that. I'm interested in kind of the social aspect. I'm interested in politics. Even sport is political. It's soft money. Okay, it's very political. So a lot of the time when we were making the films, people didn't think of sport as being political. Now we know everything is politics. So yeah, that's important for me to understand the kind of context of the characters, their rivals, but also the big picture of the story.
Menciona también como una inspiración a Chris Marker, La Jetée, Sans Soleil, películas que tienen desde lo narrativo y desde lo formal una ambición muy grande, que son modélicas, que han cambiado la historia del cine, que desde Terry Gilliam con 12 monos, hemos visto un montón de gente rendirle culto. ¿Qué lugar tienen esas dos experiencias, La Jetée y Sans Soleil, al día de hoy para él?
So, yeah, I saw a lot of these films when I was a film student. Chris Marker's work. People may know Francois Truffaut, they may know Godard, but Chris Marker was another brilliant new wave French filmmaker. And La Jetée, for me, is like one of the greatest films ever made. And so when I was making 2073, a lot of my documentaries, even though they're docs, I always think of film references. So my reference in a way for Senna was Raging Bull, like from Martin Scorsese. Like, how many fights can he show in one film? And every fight, there's only about 7 in the whole film, but every fight has to move the narrative forward. It's character. It's all about character. So for every race in Senna is about character. Every race has to move the character and the story forward. So I always think like that. So with 2073, I wanted to make something it's a very overtly political film. And it's quite heavy. It's very dark. It's about everything going on in the world right now. So how can you make a film about everything going on in the world? Then I thought about La Jetée, which somehow is time travel in a short film using only photographs. It's incredible. It's all in the idea. It's not an expensive film, but it's like one of the greatest for me, one of the greatest films because every film made by Christopher Nolan, Terminator, all of them are inspired by La Jetée. Any film where people go through time to change the past, to change the future. So that was my reference to 2073, where I thought, well, can I mix my background in fiction and documentary using archive and actors in one film?
Like a blend.
Yeah. To do something different, which is talking about the present world, but set in the future. And so that's the idea of this is where we go if we don't fix it now. And so that was the idea. And for me, I always go to cinematic references as a kind of way to say, well, if he could do it with photographs, maybe I can do it with archive. So I wanted to do something different because a lot of people now are doing the style of Senna or Diego Maradona, Amy. Everyone copies it now. So I thought, okay, it's time for me to do something else. I like to try and be ahead of the curve if I can.
Y en el caso de Amy, ¿qué película fue la referencia o si tenía algunas ideas alrededor?
Yeah, very good. Again, so, okay, I like to think of genre. So Senna is an action film. He's an all-out action hero. Amy is a musical. So for me, the musical genre growing up, my background is from India. I was thinking of like Bollywood films, like Indian musicals. And the interesting thing about musicals generally is people know the songs already. In India, the songs come out first and they become a big hit. Everyone already knows Amy's songs. So you already know the song, but you don't know what the song is about.
Yes.
So what I decided to do is to make it like a musical where the story is in the songs. The way Amy speaks to the audience is in her lyrics. And her lyrics are very honest and very sad. And they're all built about her relationships with her boyfriend, her father, her husband, ex-boyfriends, everything. She puts it all into her words. And that's why I put the words on the screen. So for me, that was a musical. And so the reference was Bollywood films, Indian musicals.
¿Cómo es el tema con familiares, con afectos cercanos, con la responsabilidad? Él no hace, digamos, las películas ASIF no son sobre Napoleón, sobre, no sé, personajes históricos, el Imperio Romano. Tiene la familia viva, tiene gente que se le acerca, sabe que está hablando de personajes muy importantes en los últimos 40 años. ¿Cómo se vincula con eso?
That's one of the challenges. That's like the big difference between doing a fiction film and a documentary is real people. People that are still in mourning, they're still suffering, they're still angry. So when I did Senna, I think it was 14 years after he had died, but the family were still upset. They're still in mourning. They lost their son. With Amy, I started Amy less than 1 year after she died. So I was worried. I was like, it's too soon. Leave her alone. But then I started listening to the music and I started thinking about it and I had lots of questions in my head. Normally there's one simple question. And with Amy, the question was, how is it possible for a young woman to die at 27 in London and nobody is shocked? I wasn't shocked. Were you shocked? Everyone knew she was going to die.
Yes.
So I kept thinking, why is she on stage? Why is she performing? Why is nobody looking after her? My question was, why, even when she was alive, I kept thinking, why is nobody looking after her? So the film, for me, was an investigation, I'd say, into a crime. Why does someone like that die? So to do that, I have to do an investigation. And my rule on this particular film was I'm going to speak to everybody. Anybody that will speak to me. Most people said no. They don't trust journalists. They didn't trust the paparazzi. They thought I was paparazzi. No, I won't speak to you. You're going to take advantage of her. So my job was to spend many years building up trust. And I interviewed people, no camera, no crew, just a microphone. I would get them to come to a safe space, a safe recording studio, no lights. I would turn the lights off. We would sit in the dark. And I would say, you can say anything you want. And if you don't want it to be in the film, don't sign the release form. But I just need to know, what's the story? And people had to tell me. They were so upset. They were in so much pain. All these young people had witnessed something really awful. They had to trust somebody. And once I listened to them and they could trust me, they told all of their friends, go and talk to him, go and talk to him, go and talk to him. So more than 120 people I interviewed for Amy. Only after I'd done all of the research. Then they said, because initially I asked them, have you got any footage? And they said, no, I've got nothing. Once they trusted me, they said, well, I've got this photograph, or I have got this little video. Or yeah, it won't be any good, but we went on holiday and I filmed this on my phone. And bit by bit, I was piecing together, like in an American cop show, in a hotel room where you have lots of drawings and arrows. So I pieced together Amy's life using all of this footage and audio that people gave me. And that's where the film comes from. The film comes from trust. And then everybody that's in the film saw the film and everybody said, you got it right. One person didn't like the film, but everybody else said it was honest. And no guesses for who that is. But it was like, even then, the film is done in such a way. I'm not telling you this. They say it themselves in the footage. Everything the father said, he said in the footage. Or Amy says in her song. I'm not making it up. My job is just to collect the story and the footage and then edit it and present it. And yeah, everybody said, look, even if they didn't say it publicly, privately, they contacted me and said, thank you. Because in a way, it meant that it was like therapy. All of the young people in the film got therapy by suddenly the truth came out and then they got on with their lives because they were really damaged. There were a lot of people who were addicts around her and they were all really suffering and they were really on a downward spiral. So yeah, the film became a way for them to get on with their life.
Estos dispositivos que inventaste para poder llegar a la confianza y que la película finalmente suceda como la conocemos, ¿se te van ocurriendo? ¿Hubo un maestro? ¿Leíste sobre algún making de un documental? Digamos, son ideas que ¿de dónde salen?
I make it up as I go along. I mean, when I first made Senna, I spoke to two directors who are from the UK, Kevin MacDonald, who won an Oscar for One Day in September, and James Marsh, who made a brilliant film called Man on Wire, about the person who walks between the Twin Towers. So I spoke to them, and one of the interesting bits of advice that James Marsh said to me was, don't only speak to the people who love the character, speak to the people who hate the character. So you have the full story. But generally, the great thing about filmmaking is you learn on the job. You learn from your instincts and you just kind of, you figure it out. And my particular style, most people said it doesn't work. You have to have interviews. You have to see the person's face. You have to see their eyes. You have to see them crying. And I hate that. I was like, I don't like that style of filmmaking. For me, if you're aware of the filmmaker, for me, that's bad directing. If you have a shot in a film that is really clever and over one long take and I'm aware of it, for me, that's bad directing. I'm not watching the movie now. I'm watching you do your job. So for me, documentaries that I wanted to make were done in the style where you don't think about who's directing it. You just suddenly going, oh, look, I'm spending time with Diego Maradona or Amy or Senna or Federer. I'm just in the room. I can't believe I'm in the room with them. And for me, that's more important. And then you learn the story and hopefully you want to emotionally affect the audience. For me, that's important. I want to move the audience some way, make them smile, make them cry, make them feel something.
Bueno, lo primero que le quiero decir es que uno llora cuando ve las películas de él, son muy emocionantes. La de Diego Maradona, yo creo que se lo deben decir todos los argentinos que está viendo en esta visita. Es una película que es imposible no llorar. Pero le quería preguntar, como hablaba de su trabajo de investigador y cómo se posiciona frente a todo esto como un investigador de Mindhunters, que es como, digamos, uno ve que en ese momento de su carrera aparece dirigiendo el capítulo 3 y el 4 de una serie que ha sido tan grande alrededor del mundo. ¿Cómo fue volver a la ficción y volver a un show que tiene un dispositivo de procedimiento tan claro, con David Fincher y demás?
It's a kind of crazy story. I love that series. It's an amazing series. I love David Fincher's work. So it's crazy. It's mad. I was sitting there having a pizza in Pittsburgh. We were filming in Pittsburgh, and I'm having a pizza with David Fincher, and I'm about to start filming. I think it was the day before I started to shoot. And I said, David, why the hell am I here? You could have had any director. Why have you asked me? He goes, oh, because it's an interesting story. He said, one day, my friend came to my house with a DVD, and he said, you got to watch this movie. And the movie was Senna. And his friend's Brad Pitt. So Brad Pitt goes to David Fincher's house and says, you got to watch this movie. You got to watch. Now, which film did Brad Pitt just make?
Formula 1.
Copied our film. And then his other friend, Fincher's other friend, is Steven Soderbergh. Steven Soderbergh's a big Amy Winehouse fan. So when Amy Winehouse came out, Steven Soderbergh said, it's a really good film. You should watch this film. I happened to be in Los Angeles. It was kind of crazy because I was on the award scene. And so every weekend there was an award and I was in LA or New York. And so David Fincher contacts me and says, do you want to meet? So I meet him for breakfast in LA. He'd seen Senna, he'd seen Amy. and he liked them. And then when I read the script is about two men investigating a series of crimes, and to figure out what happened, they take an audio recording machine and they record them. And I said to Fincher, this is exactly what I just did with Amy. My job was to take an audio machine and interview people to try to investigate a crime, and then to piece it together so it doesn't happen again. And so he liked that. And so then we have the meeting, and it's basically because of Brad Pitt, because of Senna, and because of Steven Soderbergh and Amy that I ended up getting to direct Mindhunter.
¿Qué opina del trabajo, pensando un poco en su obra, de un personaje como Herzog, que es alguien que también ahora se ha volcado estos últimos años al documental prácticamente de manera total, dejó la ficción y trabaja en ese campo, y que también ha trabajado en ficción? ¿Qué le parece como documentalista?
Herzog?
Yes.
Yeah, big fan. I mean, his feature films, when I started off making movies, my dream was to make films like Werner Herzog. I wanted to go to the most extreme places. My first film, The Warrior, I shot in the desert in Rajasthan in India and in the Himalayas. My second film with an actor called Irfan Khan, who then became a really big star. That was his first film. My second film, Far North, I filmed in the North Pole with Michelle Yeoh. So all of my and I wanted to make a film in Argentina, and I wanted to do a Western. So I wanted to do all these kinds of movies, but they were really hard to get financed. They were really hard to kind of get them off the ground. And maybe I wasn't quite as crazy as Werner Herzog, is part of the problem, right? Then life comes along, right? Life comes along, and we had children. I get married and we have a child, and I have a young baby. And I'm like, well, those films mean I'm on the other side of the world for 1 year or 2 years. So I wanted to be at home. I wanted to be around. I like my children. I like my wife. So then, accidentally, I made Senna. Because I thought this will be easy. I can be there in the morning. I go off. I do a little bit of editing. I come home. I'm here for bath time. Easy. It's so hard making dance, man. So 5 years later, I'm still making this film. My wife's saying, what are you doing? Go make a real film. Go make a proper feature film. What are you wasting your time with these stupid documentaries? And I kept thinking, I think it's going to be really good. I don't want to leave because they'll mess it up. I won't swear. I said something else. If I leave, they'll mess it up, because I knew they wanted to put in interviews and they wanted it to make it more traditional. So that was a big turning point. Like, you have a change in your life. And that is when I started making documentaries, because it was easier to be around more with family and make feature films than doing the feature films, which meant I would go to the other side of the world and never be around.
¿Ve películas permanentemente?
So, can I finish it? So then Werner Herzog, a few years ago, I interviewed Werner Herzog a couple of times. I've met Werner. He's like incredible. So I was talking to Werner Herzog. So the film that I did in the North Pole showed in Manaus, in the Opera House in Manaus, in the Amazon. So I said this to Werner Herzog. He said, let's go to Manaus and we will start a film school together. I said, let's go, Werner. He goes, yes, we will go there and we will teach people from the Amazon to become film directors. I'm like, just call me anytime. He never called.
Like a sequel from Fitzgerald.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for Werner to call me back.
Le decía que ¿cómo es su dieta como espectador? ¿Ve más documentales, ve películas, ve series? ¿No ve tanto? ¿No le gusta estar en contacto más con otras cosas, literatura, música? ¿Cómo se maneja con el cine?
For me, as an audience member, it's funny, because it's very difficult when you're working. When I'm making something, I'm in a hole. I'm like obsessed. So right now I'm making things, so I'm very obsessed, and I don't have much time to watch anything. I never watch much TV, I have to be honest. I'm not a TV guy. I love cinema. So what I do is I'm like, I vote for the Academy Awards, I vote for the BAFTA Awards, I vote for so when I have to vote, I watch everything and I see them, and when I can, I go to the cinema and I watch them. Or if I'm asked to be on a jury, then I go and I can quickly watch 20 films and I see all of the good films, and but it's a real difficult thing in the middle of making something to get like anything that's a distraction. Normally I come home, I look at an old edit or a work in progress edit, I make notes so the editor knows what to do the next day, and I'm just like in a zone. And so it's like making films is like you're in training. It's very difficult to leave the training and watch everybody else's work. But I leave it normally to like the end of the year. I catch up on everything.
Y esto es una pregunta de fan, la mía. ¿Compra formato físico? ¿Compra películas? ¿Le gusta? ¿Tiene una videoteca en la casa o no?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Loads of millions of DVDs and Blu-rays and records and cassette tapes, pneumatic tapes. Thing is, even when I was like young, I realized I was like obsessed with archiving everything. I save everything. Our house is a mess but I like physical. I don't trust this digital world. I don't like it when they take an old film and they re-edit it. They take a book and they change the words because these words are bad. No, we must remove them. This is bad. This is dangerous. This is like fascism. So you've got to have physical copies of everything. If you have a favorite piece of music, have it physical. Have a record. Have a CD. So I have everything physical as much as I can. Yeah. And also all of my own work, I try to make sure, I can get a physical copy, because anything digital, if you don't every now and again plug it in, you could lose it all. If you have all of your life story on a hard drive and you put it on a shelf for 10 years, probably when you plug it back in, there'll be nothing on it.
¿Tiene un sueño particular de hacer un documental de algo que cree que todavía no sea el momento y que lo está reservando para más adelante o para una instancia especial? ¿Un tema que le interese particularmente y que diga, bueno, todavía no es el momento, ya va a llegar?
No, I don't know. I mean, the person, like I said right at the beginning, that I'm a big fan of is Muhammad Ali. It's very difficult to tell that story unless suddenly there's material that nobody's seen. So he's still like somewhere in the back of my head. But I'm in the middle of a couple of projects right now, which I'm a bit top secret, but I'm quite excited. Are kind of dream projects that I'm doing right now, which will hopefully, I'll come back in 2 years when they come out, which are big subject matter. Over a long period of time that I think are kind of powerful and important. But maybe it's just the way my brain doesn't work like that. Actually, there's a book that somebody told me a story when I was doing my film in the North Pole. And I was like, this is an incredible story. So when I was here doing Diego Maradona, there were 2 brilliant kind of researchers who I worked with, Laura and Rita, who I worked with, who are very important kind of translators, and they found all of the archive and they did all of the interviews when I was in Buenos Aires. And I said to them, have you heard of this book someone told me about this book called Operation Massacre by Rodolfo Walsh? And they were like, of course, we all studied it at school. I'm like, what an amazing story. I'd love to adapt that one day. So that's one from Argentina that I'd like to come back and do. I know it's very complicated.
It's Argentina in cold blood.
I know. It's before in cold
blood. Yeah.
So that's the one. If you're asking me here, that's the project that I'm going to come back and do one day.
Will be great. Estaba hablando de Operación Masacre. Bueno, ustedes lo habrán leído, realmente un libro importantísimo de Rodolfo Walsh en la historia argentina. Quería saber, hablando de ficción, si tiene escondido y por ahí de la época de las primeras películas una historia que haya quedado inconclusa, que no se haya filmado, que tenga ganas de filmar en algún momento, como un sueño de, bueno, esto lo quería hacer cuando era joven, como mencionaba el western, por ejemplo.
There is a book that I have been obsessed with, which I had the rights to after I made my first film, The Warrior. It's a western. It's a very brilliant western, which lots of big directors have been attached to it. And it went from my desk in North London, very humble apartment in North London. The option went, because the option used to be owned by Harvey Weinstein and Miranos. And I was trying to make this book into a movie. And then when the option went out, the next person who had the rights was Martin Scorsese. And then he didn't make it. And now the rights are with someone called Steven Spielberg. You may have heard of him. I met Steven Spielberg once, and I said, this book, you're never going to make it. Is there any chance? He's like, oh, yes, I love that book. Yes, I've got the rights. I know you got the rights. Any chance, And he said, talk to this guy, my sister. I talked to this guy. He said, oh, we love your work. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. They didn't call back. I'm still trying. That's the book that's the drama that I would love to do. Amazing book.
¿Desde cuándo fue la primera vez que lo leyó el libro? ¿Hace cuántos años?
I read that book in probably 2002. And it's still it's a great story.
Bueno,
it's the book that I give to everyone. I say, read this. And everyone's like, this is the most amazing. Why is
you have many copies?
I bought lots of copies.
Quería saber si hablaba de Hitchcock antes de que veía las películas en las Navidades. y era muy común que Hitchcock comprara permanentemente novelas, y a lo mejor no novelas buenas necesariamente, sino que tuvieran algo interesante como para ir curioseando. Él tiene eso con la literatura, digo, está atento a qué va saliendo, algunos autores como para fijarse si encuentra algo.
Yes, we were on holiday this summer we went to Asia, and I read this Japanese book, and I came back and I just picked it up. I was in a bookshop trying to buy something else, and it had a nice cover. I thought, let's just buy that. And it's like, this is great. I'm reading and this is really fun. So I'm like, again, yeah, occasionally you read something and go, I'd love to adapt this if it's possible. Because for me, cinema and travel are joined.
Mm-hmm.
I like to go somewhere new. So I'd love to make a film in Japan. In the same way, I'd love to do a drama here. And there's loads of places that I'd like to go to. And then by making a film there, you kind of experience the culture. But again, you're an outsider. So maybe you see things that the people who live there don't notice anymore because they're used to it. So yeah, I'd love to do it was a horror film in Japan. So that's one of the other projects that I read, which I just picked up at the airport, and it was like, this will be great. So I've got to try and figure out if I can get the rights to that. But I don't know when I'm going to do this, but you could dream. Nothing wrong with dreaming.
Y quería que charlemos un poco de lo que cree el lugar que tiene el cine hoy en la vida de la audiencia, con las plataformas, con lo efímero, con el paso rápido de las cosas, siendo alguien que está preocupado justamente por contar historias que adviertan, que trasciendan, que hagan replantear o conocer a unos personajes. Y hoy es un momento muy particular, todo pasa muy rápido, que parece una idea contrapuesta a lo que el cine en su origen está pretendiendo, que es ir más allá de la vida, ir más allá del tiempo. ¿Cómo lo ve? ¿Cómo ve esa crisis que estamos teniendo como audiencia?
I think if I understand it correctly, I think we've got a challenge. I love cinema because I love being in a dark room, surrounded by people I don't know, with their phones off, and you get lost. And it's like dreams. It's like cinema is dreams. You go to another world. I don't like TV personally because I get bored. I start thinking, is there any chocolate? I'm feeling hungry. I want chocolate. You know, my brain is always like, oh, I just check my email. Oh, let me put something. Oh, what's the football scores? I don't concentrate on anything. Even, so for me, I miss going to the cinema and I want it to survive. And I know it's challenged in a lot of parts of the world. It's a real problem. But for me, that there's something amazing about watching something where you have no idea where it's going to go. I have to be honest, I like going to see a movie which has a beginning and a middle and an end. I get a bit bored if someone says that show is great. It starts getting good after season 4. And you're like, what, 40 hours before it gets good? I don't have time. I got things to do. So that idea of just like waiting for 30 hours for it to be good, not for me. So I don't know, but that's also there's something collective. I like the collective experience. I like being somewhere. You go out, you talk to people about it, you talk to strangers, and there's something about that which is important. Like going to live music or the theater. There's something different than watching it on a small screen on your cell phone or on an iPad. I'm old-fashioned. I still like that. I still find that's the best thing ever.
Siempre le pregunto a todos los invitados que vienen, han venido directoras, directores, actrices, actores, y siempre pregunto cuál es la mejor virtud que puede tener un director y el peor defecto que puede tener en su consideración.
Not me, directors.
Directors in the world.
I think you have to be a bit crazy. You have to be very driven. I mean, there's a director, Alan Parker. Do you remember Alan Parker?
Yes.
The Commitments, Mississippi Burning.
Angel Heart.
Great British director. He came from commercials. And he was like...
He made Evita here in Argentina.
Like, of course you know him, right? So Alan Parker was a cartoonist, famous kind of illustrator. So there's a picture that he drew which has 100 people pointing over there. And one person pointing like that. And there he goes, director. That's what a director is. 100 people will face there, and this guy, well, I think this way is interesting. So you've got to have whatever that is. You've got to be that. You've got to somehow think differently to everyone else, which is a positive and a negative. The negative is, I think, we now, power can corrupt.
Yes.
And I think anyone who has too much power and directors
became darker.
It's not that different to dictators.
Yes.
You know, then awful things can be done if nobody says no to them. And I think there are a lot of directors who cross the line and who, because they're a director, they can say to people to do things or, you know, treat them badly. I don't like shouting at people. I don't like that kind of technique of directing. I like to finish a project with people that want to work with me again and not people who said, I'll never work with them again. So that's what I would say is the danger of it.
Lamentablemente, ella es es un error muy común y una virtud muy poco vista. Eso de que la gente quede contenta y quiera volver a trabajar, a veces en el mundo del cine, incluso muy profesional, bueno, terminan pasando cosas muy feas en ese sentido. Le quería preguntar por la música de Diego Maradona. Yo me compré el disco, me volví loco con la música, me parece genial. ¿Y cómo se trabajó? Porque en el caso de Amy, bueno, la música estaba ahí, pero la película de Diego tiene música muy buena, muy interesante. ¿Qué tomó de referencia? ¿Qué música quería? Ese tecno ochentero, medio Giorgio Moroder, ¿no? Una cosa así.
So I have a composer that has been my regular composer in all of my documentaries, Antonio Pinto from Brazil, from Sao Paulo. So I've worked with him for a long time. He did Senna. So he did City of God, Central Station. He did the Olympics in Brazil, in Rio. So he's like an amazing composer. And he contacted me when I was doing Senna and said, I have to do this film. And I said, that's great. I don't think we have the money to hire you. So he said, I have to do it. I was there watching Senna. So I said, look, I got an idea. Write some music for me from your memories of Ayrton Senna. And then if I put it in the film, the producers will love it and they would have to hire you. So without him seeing any of the film, just from his memories, he wrote a theme, which is the main Senna theme, without seeing any of the film, which I used in the film again and again and again. Everybody loved it. They said, we've got to hire, where did you get that music? I said, So then he became the composer. With Amy, it was difficult because we have Amy's music, but the score is still Pinto. There's a piano theme. So there's a lot of stuff which is not Amy, which is in between, which is again Antonio. And then when we get to Diego, it's a mixture of Antonio Pinto's music, but my editor, Chris King, he's brilliant with music. He's an incredible editor with sound and music. So for the beginning of Diego Maradona, we use the kind of dance track, which is a kind of copy of like Giorgio Moroder, Vorterix, DeLorean Dynamite, it's called, which is, my editor's like a DJ as well. And so he was like, we had a very long conversation, but it was like exactly the energy for the beginning of the film to say, now you're in Diego Maradona land. But there's an interesting story about, there was a cut, an edit of Diego Maradona, which was 3 hours long, because we tried to tell the whole story. And we screened it to people in London, a work in progress. And everyone was like, it's not working. It's not Amy. It's not Senna. No, it's not quite right. You've not got it right yet. And we were like, okay, this is trouble. Because the truth was, at that point, it took 40 minutes to get to Napoli. So when we finished that screening, I came into the edit suite with the editor and I said, we have to get rid of all of that opening. Because the film,
Napoli.
Yeah, it starts in Napoli. So that 40 minutes... we cut down to 5 minutes and we put this piece of music on it. And then after Napoli, there was 40 minutes. Everything that comes after, Cuba, Fidel Castro, like so much happened here in Argentina. And I was like, we have to go. We have to make it really tight. So we have like an intro and an outro. And the intro of whizzing through his life while we're driving the car through the traffic in Napoli is why that music, we needed to find the right piece of music. And that's where the kind of the Giorgio Moroder and Diego's dancing and everything. So it's like perfect. It's a great opening, I have to say, piece of music.
Le quería preguntar, estas son las preguntas que yo odio que me hagan, pero a mí me divierte hacerlas, porque son de elegir una cosa o la otra. Y si uno tiene en una mano una historia muy interesante para contar como documentalista, y en la otra mano tiene una pasión muy grande por casi cualquier cosa, ¿qué cree que pese más? ¿El punto de vista del documentalista o el objeto de estudio en cuestión?
Explain that one again. What weighs most? The kind of filmmaking?
In one hand, my passion. In the other hand, a great story. What is the most important?
I think, honestly, I'm very lucky. It's the same thing. My great passion is filmmaking. So I've been making films since I was 17. So I only make films that I want to make. I don't make I used to have to make films to pay the bills.
The Great Passion Hand, then. You choose the Great Passion Hand.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Bien.
Yeah.
¿Y qué consejo le daría a alguien que quiere empezar una carrera como documentalista? Alguien que quiere iniciarse, que vio sus películas, se inspiró, le parecen que realmente quiere hacer algo así, o por lo menos sentir algo así, contar una historia así.
I think the only way to learn is it's good to know to watch movies, to read screenplays, to understand storytelling. I think it's really good to read like drama. You need to understand how does a story work? What do you need for a story to work? But then you have to just do it. You just have to try. You only really learn filmmaking by making films. You have to film something, or you have to find archive, you have to edit it, you have to give it a context, your point of view. That's the important thing. You have to put you in it. Even if it's not about you, it's not about your parents or your grandfather, it could be about somebody on the street. But you've got to have a point of view. And then I would say the most important thing is to finish it. I have lots of friends who are geniuses, but they never made a film. They started many. They never finished them because they're always like, oh, I've got a better idea. I'm going to go make this. I'm like, what? That was a good one. Finish it. They go, no. I'm going to do this other one. And not finishing is a habit. It's a bad habit. You have to complete and you have to put it out there in the world somehow. Go to a film festival, send it, put it on YouTube, whatever you can do, because the film is not finished until an audience see it. And they may hate it or they may love it. You don't know. But you have to hand it over to people and then you forget it and you make the next one and the next one and the next one. And that is really what the lesson for filmmaking is. Learn from other people, but most importantly, learn for yourself.
La última pregunta, agradecerle un montón, ahora le vamos a dar unos regalos que tenemos para él. Me gustaría que me cuente la última gran película que vio y le voló la cabeza. Puede ser en el avión, puede ser en su casa, puede ser que fue al cine, puede ser hace mucho tiempo. Puede ser antigua, no tiene que ser nueva necesariamente.
Recent film? Or any...
No. Any film that blows your mind.
Wow.
The last movie that blows your mind.
I think... Oh my God. I mean, I can't help but go back to old films, but I will have to try and think of a recent film that I've seen that's blown my mind. Let me just think of what is the last... I mean, I'll give you an example of one, which I can remember. I was lucky to be... Actually, I was at Cannes Film Festival in 2019 with Diego Maradona. So Maradona was premiering at the Cannes Film Festival. And I was there in the audience when Parasite premiered. And I was there...
When it came out.
Yeah, like the first time it's ever been seen. And watching this and going, this is just like incredible piece of filmmaking, which is...
You don't know nothing.
No, because it was the world premiere. It's the first time anybody had seen it. And you look at it and go, this film is like the best thing, that it's going to win everything. We have no... It was like a Korean movie. Like no one thinks that a Korean movie is going to win Best Picture at the Oscars, but it did. So I've been lucky to see a few films like Old Boy or some Lars von Trier films where you go to Cannes and you see... Because maybe what I'm trying to say is the best film for me is when I see a film before I know anything about it. No, I don't watch trailers. I don't read reviews. I don't want to know anything. I'm sitting in a room. I have no idea what's about to happen. And then you see something and you're going, that's like, for me, the greatest thing about cinema. Is there's no trailers. There's no little introduction at the beginning telling you.
No letterbox.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like reading anything about a film. And so for me, that was one example of a film which I just thought, wow, this is huge and funny, but also like social. It's saying something and it's dark and it's violent and everything. And I remember going, this is like the best film I've seen at that point. That's like 2019. I've seen other great films since, but I can just remember that experience of seeing something on the biggest screen in the world, probably. That's what I love about cinema.
Muchísimas gracias por haber venido. Es un orgullo, un placer que esté acá. Sabemos que va a estar dando charlas, que va a estar presentando sus películas. Ojalá que venga a filmar algo acá en Argentina pronto. Tengo unos regalos que le vamos a dar. Estas son unas remeras.
Love presents.
Yes, me too. Esta es la camiseta de California Secreta. This is our show.
Thank you. What happens when you give me nice presents? My children steal all of the t-shirts.
Yes. This is... él conoce a esta persona mucho. Muy bonito, vestido.
I'm not going to let them steal this one. Love it.
Y acá tenemos, esto es lo más importante. Agradecemos a la tienda No Lo Entenderías que nos enviaron remeras de California Secreta. Una para mí, una para ASIF que la tiene en su mano, que es la de Diego. Y para el resto del staff también nos obsequiaron una camiseta de Diego vistiendo la de su amado Boca Junior, que es para ASIF, y una de todos los Diegos para mí. La web es noloentenderías.com.ar y el Instagram @noloentenderías.ok. Y lo que tengo en la mano, esto es espectacular. Quiero agradecer a la Asociación Atlética Argentino Juniors, el semillero del mundo, y especialmente al encargado del departamento de marketing, Martín Talarico, por habernos enviado una camiseta de Argentino Juniors para ASIF y una para mí. En Argentino Juniors jugó mi abuelo en algún momento en el amateurismo. Después lo vendieron a Boca y no llegó. Esto es increíble. This is for you, man.
Thank you. It's my first Argentinos Juniors shirt, so I love
For the collection. Increíble, dice Maradona, tiene el 10. Ahora nos vamos a sacar unas fotos. Gracias por la traducción, gracias por todo. Y lo último que tengo para decirles y para anunciarles es que el jueves que viene vamos a tener con nosotros aquí a Laura Chitarella del Pampero para hablar de un montón de cosas de Trenkelauken, de cine y demás. Eso es todo, Juanma. Gracias, Asif, por haber venido. You are the best, man.
Thank you. Gracias.
I love your movies. Gente querida, hasta el jueves que viene aquí en California Secreta.